Welcome back to another episode of Real Science with Chris Neal. Today we're going to talk about protein. How much protein do I need? Am I getting in too much? Am I getting in too little? I know they say that protein helps you lose weight. What does it all mean, and how do we break it down into a real science format that is applicable to our daily life? If you want some answers to those questions, stay tuned, like, and subscribe. See you in a minute. Okay, so when it comes to protein, there are a lot of things to discuss. First, let's start with protein is one of the macros. The three basic macros are carbohydrates, protein, and fats. Macros are basically a simple breakdown as to what your body does with the food that you take in. Ultimately, the majority of what you take in and eat gets broken down into one of these things if it's not already in the format of one of those things. And then your body is able to utilize that. So, protein being a macro is different than the other two macros, mostly because protein doesn't really have a solid way for your body to store this protein. So you can take in protein, and really the primary way that your body stores protein to utilize for later is to build muscle. Like that is basically your protein storage. So, but the body doesn't always see it that way or utilize it that way in the same way that our body will store fat for a rainy day, and it is, your metabolism can sometimes be driven towards storing fat for many different reasons, typically those reasons are different types of metabolic syndrome where your metabolism is just stubborn, but the whole goal is to, as far as your metabolism's philosophy is concerned, is that you need to store up fat because we might need to use it one day and we want to have those extra calories on hand. That's the general philosophy. I tend to look at your metabolism kind of like a person. I like to personify things because it helps me understand them better. So every person, all of my patients are different, and what makes them different is that the personification of their metabolism or their machine is unique to them, and that's the fascinating part of discovering how each machine and how each person and their metabolism and different aspects about them is different. And then once we discover the little nuances in their metabolism, then we're able to zone in and turn the right dials and focus in on that, and it gives you a much greater level of success. So one of my pet peeves is generalities. So in the nutrition world and in the fitness and coaching and training world, I shouldn't say we, like a lot of people like to generalize things because it allows their job to be a lot easier by applying one method of thinking to all people. So, and a good example of that is an equation. So how much protein, if you search how much protein should I take in, you're going to find lots of equations out there. Most of them are rather simple. 1 gram per pound of body weight. Everybody's probably heard that before. I've heard 1.5 grams or even 2 grams per pound of body weight if you want to growing muscle, I mean. So that's for all people. So what I did, and this was probably about 10, 15 years ago, I would ask, people in mostly gyms and trainers and nutritionists and stuff that question. And they would give me the same answer. And my response was always, well, what if I weigh 500 pounds? And immediately all of them are like, no, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. And well, if that equation doesn't work in all situations, then you can't apply it in all situations. You have to come up with a different way of thinking. So that leads me to our conversation today. So we talked about protein as a macro and how it does what it does, and its ability to be stored. But the motivation behind storing protein is what is a little bit different. It's not taken in the same way that storing carbs and storing fat is concerned. The metabolic or the metabolic variable is not really in the mix when it comes to the intentional storage of protein. Usually the using protein to build muscle is more of an anabolic effect that is a response to stimulus of the muscle, i.e. working out. Okay, so that's very, very unique. Out of the three macros, protein is the one that's the most different for that main reason, and that impacts everything in the cascade of protein. So let's go back to that variable again. So let's go back to, and there's even more complicated variables. So there's a lot of them, like 1.2 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram. If you want to gain muscle, you need to be at 1.6. If you just want to burn fat, you need to be at 1.1 or 1.2 grams per kilogram. So it's all kilograms of body weight. I mean, it's all rather generalized, and I really have found that by individualizing care and focus and understanding to the individual's engine, you get much, much better results, and you learn things as you go along, how different everyone is, and how to apply that. So let's talk about that when it comes to protein. So how much protein do we really need? Well, first we have to understand that the amount of protein is only one small part of the picture. So I always like to go back to the goal. So let's say, for example, my goal is to put on muscle. Okay, how much protein do I need to put on muscle? That's really my focus is building of the muscle. So in building muscle, there are several variables that go into that. Building muscle is kind of like building a house. So if I really wanted to get a house built, I mean, really, I was really, really motivated to get a house built. That's me as a manager, as a person, not my body. My body is separate. So my body has certain, is stubborn sometimes it wants to build, sometimes it doesn't. But my willpower, I say I want to build muscle. It's fine for me to say that. If my body doesn't want to come along, then it's a different story. So building muscle is like building a house. So the protein that I put into the mix, that's like me bringing a load of lumber to the house, fresh lumber, already cut, ready to go, and I sit it there by the side of the house in the driveway. My factory workers or my construction workers, they're all sitting under the oak tree, just chilling, like listening to music and like eating their lunch and just enjoying the weather. So in a situation, and we've all seen that before, just driving by, and you see the construction workers not really doing anything. Now in that situation, that's like saying my body is not very anabolic. So my body, the nature of my body, the personality of my body's workers now. The workers do not care, and they really don't feel like building. So I can bring all the lumber I want out to the construction site and lay it all right there. It makes no difference because they're not going to get up and build anything. Therefore, a house doesn't get built. So then how much does protein really have an impact? Well, it does, but first you have to make sure that your workers even want to work in the first place, and that is dictated by a signal or hormone, primarily testosterone and your other anabolic hormone or your other anabolic signals. So if you know to begin with, or if you haven't checked, if you know to begin with that your hormones are low or they're not optimized, then eating too much protein or overeating protein or eating that 1 gram per pound of body weight or whatever, you're basically wasting your time. So now let's take a jump and say you are optimized. Your hormones are where they should be. You are in an anabolic state. Awesome. Well, if that's the case, then your workers really want to work. They really want to get to it. So how anabolic is anabolic? Some people are more anabolic than others, so and that can be if you go through your a really good performance clinician, he'll be able to tell you how anabolic it is and how safe it is. And also there's a stacking effect. So how long you're in an anabolic state also makes a big difference. So that plays a really big role. How much do these workers really want to work will give you a sense as to how much lumber they can handle in one day, and that's what you want to supply. So now what's the downside? Interestingly enough, when it comes to the other macros, carbs and fats, there is a limit where over carbing yourself or putting in too much fat into your diet does have some deleterious effects. One of them, the simplest one, is that you're going to put on weight. Your body will just naturally take all that excess or a lot of that excess and just convert it into storage. In the case of protein, it's not really like that. I did a lot of research about 15 years ago, and I found that one of the factors of in this situation when it comes to protein is that your body doesn't just routinely naturally store your protein in the same way it would with carbs and with fats. What it's going to do with that protein, for the most part, is send the excess protein to the kidneys to be processed out, to be excreted. So any of the nitrogen-based things, so that includes your amino acids as well. So over-proteinating yourself, if you're giving your construction site way too much lumber to deal with in one day, that your workers are not really in that much of a mood to work, then all that excess is going to go to your kidneys and it stresses out your kidneys. I can see it in a set of labs that the kidney stress that's going on. The kidney filtration slows down, your creatinine goes way up, other factors can change quite a bit. And it does cause kidney stress. Ultimately, in the most extreme situations, it causes a condition called rhabdomyolysis. And that is a very, very dangerous situation where basically your kidneys, all of a sudden, all on their own, they quit. They go on strike, they're done. And it's an immediate thing. And I'm talking, you're hitting the gym, you're all done with a great workout and you're walking back to your car and you just drop to the ground. Boom, like quick. And ultimately, it ends up with, at least, around a week and a half, 2-3 weeks in the hospital, sometimes dialysis. If you're lucky, you might not need dialysis, but a lot of times you do need dialysis, and it takes a long time to recover from that. So we don't want to deal with a kidney shutdown situation, but all of that stuff can be avoided if we understand how the kidneys do what they do, how they work, and their relationship to our macros and what we're eating, so, and we can also reach that maximum performance in that maximum benefit of muscle development if that's what we're after. So now let's say we're not after muscle development. Let's say we just want to lose weight. And you know what I hear? Everybody always says that, I need to eat more protein. That'll help me lose weight. But people usually don't talk about why that is. How does eating more cause you to lose weight? In this case, replacing, let's say, carbohydrates or fats with protein. How does that happen? Well, let's look at the real science with that. Like I said, protein is a very unique one. It's not going to get stored necessarily as a storage molecules for a rainy day, like fats or carbs would. So protein is typically much more dense of a material to eat. Therefore, it will fill you up more, generally speaking. Protein, high in protein foods will fill you up more and make you feel more satiated. So you can go through a meal and take in this food. Maybe, let's say you're in it for weight loss and you're not really pushing your muscles that hard. Let's say your muscle requirement is not that high and you increase your protein slightly above that, but you're able to decrease and pull away from some of the other macros that are more related to your weight gain, then yes, over time you will lose weight. You will. But still, even in that case, you want to be very careful that you watch your protein levels and you watch your kidneys. The kidneys is what you want to be concerned with, because even in that case, you can over-proteinate yourself. You can go a little out there with it, and that can cause some kidney stress. So just to talk a little bit about what kidney stress looks like effectively, when the kidneys are really stressed out, they back up. So if we look at the kidneys like a department in a factory, your body is like a big giant factory, and there's several departments, and they all work together, but they're all kind of separate too. So the kidneys, that's the filtration department. So they have two giant filters inside this department, and they filter all of the stuff most of the stuff that your body's not going to use to throw away. Like, that's their job. let's say you're over-protonating yourself. That's stressing out the kidney department. What does that look like? Well, when the kidneys are stressed, they're not able to do their work effectively. So they can't filter as well. They slow down, and it slows down the filtration speed. You can see all of this in labs. It slows down your filtration speed. And over time, what will happen if it really gets bad is that the filtration speed can get so low where it causes a catastrophic event, and that's the rhabdomyolysis. But way before the catastrophic event, you'll notice that if your filtration mechanism isn't filtering, just like any filter, stuff gets backed up upstream of the filter, right? So that's the entire body, the soft tissues, your extremities. You'll notice some water weight gain, and you'll be holding on to water because your kidneys are so stressed out they can't process it. So all of these things are really important to be aware of. A performance specialist that is good at what he or she does, will know about this and be able to find these things and be able to keep you dialed in and optimized. So a lot of diets out there kind of focus on tweaking macros and playing with things and everything. I can really get on my soapbox and tell you that after seeing so many patients over the years that there is no equation, there is no one size fits all for these issues at all. And anyone that tells you otherwise just hasn't seen enough patients and enough clients to know or see it, So that's really what it comes down to. But it's still a fantastic and very, very exciting journey. I love learning about how it all works, the real science behind all of this, and I love discovering more and more things. So if you would also like to be optimized and learn a little bit about your metabolism, your hormones, and how all of this works individually, specifically for you, then reach out. You can find me and my team at our clinic, team360health.com, and you can schedule an appointment and we can review all of this stuff. It's a lot of fun, and I would love exploring everything with you, and I look forward to the journey. Thank you, everybody. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Stay tuned for more, and as always, stay healthy.